But it wasn't beef or pork. It was human.
I have spent most of my life on the sea, but there is one night I will never forget, one that still haunts me to this day. I was just a young sailor then, eager and inexperienced, working aboard a small fishing vessel with 4 other men. We had suffered 2 unlucky fishing trips in a row, so this time we were determined to bring back a full haul, even if it meant staying overnight far from the coast. We set sail early in the morning, heading toward deeper waters. As the sun began to set, one of the older sailors, a quiet and weathered man named Elias, warned us about a particular stretch of sea we should avoid. He spoke of old superstitions, whispers of strange sounds that could lure men to their deaths. The others laughed, brushing off his concerns. Even the captain dismissed it, saying it might actually be a good place to fish since most boats stayed away from those waters. I, on the other hand, felt a nervous excitement. I had never sailed so far from land before, and the idea of entering unknown waters filled me with both wonder and unease. That night, after a long day, we anchored the boat and prepared to sleep. The ocean was calm, the sky clear, and everything seemed peaceful. As I stepped onto the deck to get some air, I saw Elias kneeling near the railing, murmuring a prayer while pressing wax earplugs into his ears. The sight unsettled me, but I said nothing. The only sound was the gentle lapping of the waves against the hull. Then I heard it, a noise unlike anything I had ever known. At first it was an eerie hum, distant yet impossibly clear. It sent a chill through my spine. The hum twisted into something melodic, a song so hauntingly beautiful that it filled my head completely. It pulled me in, made my mind feel weightless. My vision blurred, and before I could make sense of what was happening, everything went black. I woke up hours later, my body aching and drenched in seawater. My wrists and ankles were bound, and my eye throbbed in pain. The others were gathered around me, their faces grim. Elias spoke first. "You jumped. If I hadn't seen you go over, you'd be gone by now." My mind reeled. I had no memory of jumping, but the look in his eyes told me he was serious. He explained that I had been bewitched by the siren's song, an old legend that most sailors dismissed until it was too late. When he saw me go overboard, he threw a buoy after me, and then, in desperation, hurled a bottle at the cabin door to wake the others. They had all rushed out, barely in time to drag me back. But even after being pulled aboard, I was still trying to force my way into the water. Elias had to knock me unconscious to keep me from drowning myself. After that, no one argued with him. We all stuffed wax into our ears and stayed awake as long as we could, huddled in silence. The night dragged on and none of us spoke of what had happened. By morning, the spell had passed. The sea looked as it always had, vast and indifferent. We pulled in a good catch, more than enough to make up for our previous bad luck. But even as we loaded the nets, I felt uneasy. Something about that place still clung to me. Then, as I was hauling in the last net, I found it, an odd object tangled among the fish. It was a smooth, dark stone, but embedded within it were small, sharp teeth arranged like the prongs of a primitive comb. It didn't look like any fossil or coral I had ever seen. I kept it, a reminder of that night, of how close I had come to vanishing beneath the waves. To this day, I still have that strange stone, and I still hear the song in my dreams.
I never thought I'd regret getting something for free. But after what I saw on that ship, I'd rather be broke for life than step on another boat again. It started as a simple plan. A luxury cruise ship was departing for a 3-day voyage. I managed to fake my way onto the crew list as a temporary worker, using a stolen uniform and a little bit of confidence. My goal? Enjoy the trip, steal valuables from the rich, and slip away unnoticed when we reached the next port. I set up a sleeping spot in an unused storage room near the lower decks, small, dark, and smelling faintly of cleaning supplies, but good enough. On the first night, luck was on my side. I lifted a master keycard from one of the supervisors, meaning I now had access to multiple rooms. Jackpot. But as I walked through the corridors deciding which room to hit first, I noticed something strange. A rancid, almost metallic smell, thick and putrid. It made my stomach churn. I wasn't the only one who noticed it. A couple of guests wrinkled their noses as they passed by, but no one said a word. Something in my gut told me to hold off on robbing that night, so I returned to my hiding spot to wait for the next evening. On the second night, while most of the guests were gathered in the grand ballroom for a lavish party, I saw my opportunity. I used the master key to enter one of the more expensive suites. It was dark inside, but as soon as I flicked on my flashlight, I froze. Sitting on the desk was a silver platter, beautifully arranged, like something you'd see in a five-star restaurant. But on it wasn't food. It was a severed human head. The skin was pale and waxy, the lips pulled back into a grotesque half-smile. Delicate herbs garnished the plate as if it were a gourmet dish. I barely had time to stifle my gasp before I heard voices outside. My heart pounded as I darted into the closet and shut the door, peeking through the slats. Two crew members entered, dressed in pristine uniforms. Without hesitation, they lifted the platter and walked out, carrying the head as if it were nothing more than a roast. Shaking, I followed them as quietly as I could, trailing them down the hall toward the grand ballroom. What I saw next is the reason I still wake up screaming. The guests weren't just enjoying cocktails and expensive champagne. They were gathered around a long, ornate table, plates piled high with meat. But it wasn't beef or pork. It was human. Severed limbs, ribs with visible tattooed skin, fingers delicately arranged like hors d'oeuvres. The guests laughed, chewed, and sipped their wine as if this were just another elegant cruise meal. And the worst part? The crew was serving it to them. I backed away slowly, my breath coming in short gasps. I had to get off this ship. There was no way I'd last another night here. For the next 24 hours, I barely moved from my hiding spot, surviving on stolen snacks and bottled water. Every sound made me jump. Every footstep sent chills down my spine. Finally, when the port was within sight, I made my move. I snuck onto the deck, found an emergency life raft, and silently lowered myself into the water. Just as I started rowing away, I glanced back at the ship one last time. That's when I saw them, crew members dumping large black bags overboard. The ocean rippled as the bags hit the water, some splitting open on impact. Inside were bones, limbs, and chunks of what used to be people, the remains of their grotesque feast. I rowed faster than I ever have in my life. When I finally reached the shore, I ran and never looked back. I changed my name, moved to a different state, and found an honest job. But I still have nightmares about that ship. I don't know who those people were. I don't know if they were part of some secret elite society or something even darker. All I know is this. If you ever get invited onto a luxury cruise that seems too good to be true, don't go. Some things aren't worth the price, even if they're free.
I never expected to end up in that remote fishing village. It was punishment, really. My editor had sent me there after a dispute over my last article, telling me to cover a series of child disappearances in the area. I thought it would be a simple, uneventful assignment. I was wrong. The village was small, almost forgotten by time. As I walked through the narrow dirt paths, I could feel the stares, fearful, distrustful. No one spoke to me. Then a boy, no older than 10, approached me cautiously. "Are you here because of Mike?" he asked in a whisper. I knelt down. "Who's Mike?" "My friend. He disappeared." Before I could ask more, his mother rushed over, pulling him away while muttering in a mix of Spanish and English. She shot me a fearful glance before disappearing into her home. At the police station, I met the local chief. He was on edge, clearly overwhelmed. He asked me, begged me, not to make a spectacle of the town. He didn't want reporters swarming in, turning the disappearances into a media circus. I reassured him that I was just here to do the basics, that I wasn't trying to make a name for myself. It was half true. The following days, I joined the police and some volunteers searching the nearby swamps and dense mangroves. 3 days passed. Nothing. Not a single trace of the missing children. The house I was staying in belonged to an old man who lived in the upper part of the building, barely speaking a word to me. But on the third night, he finally did. "You're looking in the wrong place," he muttered. "Check the sea." His words chilled me. The police had focused inland, assuming the children had wandered off or been taken. But the sea was vast and merciless. The next morning, I told the chief about the old man's suggestion. He hesitated, but eventually agreed. However, when we returned to my lodging to speak to the old man, he was gone, his room empty, as if he had never been there. Taking a small boat, we ventured into the deeper waters near the coastline. The sea was calm, eerily so. Then, we saw it. A large, bloated fish floating near the surface. One of the fishermen scooped it up with a net. As soon as they saw it, the villagers on board began sobbing, praying, some even striking the creature in horror. It was unlike any fish I had ever seen. It resembled a goblin shark, but with grotesque, elongated appendages, thin, malformed arms. Its mouth was lined with teeth that looked disturbingly human. My journalist instincts kicked in. I snapped photos, scribbled notes. Then they cut it open. What spilled out haunts me to this day. Small, mangled limbs, remnants of clothing, bones far too human to be anything else. The villagers wept. The police chief turned away, shaking his head in silent horror. I retreated to the edge of the boat, nausea overtaking me. Later that night, one of the officers found me outside, still gripping my notepad. He told me about an old legend, a sea creature that fed on humans, a monster that, after consuming enough flesh, would transform into something else, something almost human. The villagers believed we had caught it before it could complete its change. I had enough material to write the most terrifying article of my career, but the chief pleaded with me again, this time with genuine fear in his eyes. Please, don't let the world know about this. I understood. The town had already suffered enough. So when I sent my final article to my editor, I simply wrote that the case remained unsolved, that nothing unusual had been found. But I had to tell someone. I had to let this story exist somewhere.